Tonight, Victoria's virus outbreak worsens, more deaths recorded across the state, including a man in his 30s, as the Premier cracks down on those breaching restrictions, more door-to-door checks for those self-isolating.
Queensland closes its borders to anyone from New South Wales or the ACT as coronavirus cases rise outside of Victoria.
Also tonight, Beirut rocked by a massive explosion. An Australian amongst over 100 people killed in Lebanon's capital. Locals saying they have nothing left.
China lashes out after reports that Australia will scrutinise TikTok as Donald Trump gives the popular app one final chance.
And the suspected teenage mastermind of last month's Twitter hack pleads not guilty. 6 News starts now. Good evening, thanks for watching. Wherever you are tonight, we have special coverage of the coronavirus pandemic. Darby Travers is in Melbourne, Jack Hahn is in Sydney, and Jackson Gosnell is in South Carolina. But let's begin with today's show host, Karl Stefanovic, who's standing by for us in Sydney. Good evening to you, Karl. Now, the Queensland Premier has now shut the border to New South Wales and the ACT. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, that's right, Leo. The State Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, she has called the closure a life and death situation with cases rising in both New South Wales and Queensland. And we have seen people, well, even before that announcement was made, go to great lengths to try and avoid the border closure. One man reportedly drove from Sydney, hotspots, a suburb there, to the ACT to get on a flight to Brisbane before going to Cairns. Can you believe that? And Anastasia Palaszczuk has said the Queensland needs to do everything they can possible to stop this right now. Leah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask you about what you've been seeing about the main outbreak in the country, which obviously is where I am right now in Victoria. How are you seeing the situation in Sydney?
I think that there were some really bad mistakes made, but I don't think that we can dwell on them at this point. There is a huge crisis that we need to deal with from a health perspective. And the aged care facilities, the situation in those is absolutely abhorrent. So that I think the healthcare and getting in control of this is the most important thing right now. We can have a look. The inquiry is underway, as we know, so we'll get to all of that soon. And we'll find out the answers as to what happened. But right now, let's just deal with this emergency and try and flatten the curve of the second wave.
Yeah, all right, and let's get more on the lockdown in Melbourne right now. Senior reporter Darby Travers joins us now live. Darby, these are some major changes. Can you tell us about these new restrictions?
That's right, Leo. Stage 4 lockdown restrictions is now in place for Melbourne, with Victoria's Premier Daniel Andrews officially declaring a state of disaster. Non-essential shops and businesses are now closed, except for supermarkets, hospitals, bottle shops and petrol stations. Movements are also now limited, with only one person per household going shopping. And for exercise, you can only be with one other person and must stay within 5 kilometres of your home for only 1 hour. The Premier announced an 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew for Melbourne, with police and soldiers now monitoring streets. And all students from grades prep to 12 across Victoria are now learning remotely, with the exception of vulnerable and those of essential workers. Now, the ADF have been door-knocking homes of people who have tested positive for COVID and making sure they are staying at home. Victorians found breaching the Chief Health Officer's directions more than once will now face fines of up to $5,000. So, no doubt some tough new measures from authorities. Leo?
Darby, we'll leave it there. Thank you. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian has warned that the next few weeks are critical in ensuring that New South Wales doesn't share the same fate as Victoria. Straight to reporter Jack Hahn, live for us in Sydney. Jack, what precautions are New South Wales taking against coronavirus?
Masks, Leo, they are the new precaution and they are the new weapon in the fight against coronavirus. The Premier pleading with people to take swift precaution to avoid our state being paralysed by a second wave. If you're on a train, on a bus, going to the grocery store, or if you live in a coronavirus cluster, it is strongly recommended and encouraged that you wear a mask if you cannot socially distance. Now, new information for those coming from the country's biggest coronavirus cluster, Victoria. You will have a new welcome at the Berejiklian border. 14 days of hotel quarantine, and you'll have to pay for it. The exact same procedures will apply if you're coming from overseas as if you were coming from Victoria. That coming into effect this weekend after growing pressure on the Berejiklian government that there might be some lapses in the precautions that were being taken for those coming from Victoria. So she has put an end to all of that conversation by making those from Victoria go into hotel quarantine. And Leo, I should quickly point out before we go, Karl is on the program tonight, and that is such a huge honour for me. I've been a super fan for a very, very long time. I've grown up watching Karl on the Today Show, and I'm a huge fan of the Today Show funny bits and an even bigger fan of Mr. Stefanovic himself. It is so good to have him on the broadcast tonight, and a bit of a TV nerd moment for me.
Jack, we're all very happy to have him on tonight. Thank you for that report there. And the situation is still out of control in the United States. Our US correspondent, Jackson Gosnell, joins me now live. Jackson, what's the current situation there?
Leo, we are monitoring many stories from here in the U.S., and I want to start at this hour with coronavirus. Cases are continuing to increase every day here in the U.S., and specifically Florida has taken a hard hit from this virus, as many other states have as well. The governor of Ohio has now tested positive for coronavirus as well, so he will be quarantined for 2 weeks. Americans are getting back to normal as masks are required in most restaurants here. The place is not on lockdown in terms of the nation. However, a lot of people are still practicing social distancing and wearing the mask just to be safe. Next up, the hurricane that came through. While we've seen many impacts from tropical storm and then Hurricane Isaias, and I'm told that at least 5 people have unfortunately died so far. It made landfall between South and North Carolina and caused destruction in many parts. Flooding was a huge concern with this system, but everything seems to be okay. However, people are still without power at this hour, going into several days from the storm, so it'll be interesting to see when power is restored. The big story also here is TikTok. The president said he would ban TikTok. However, he has now given ByteDance, that's TikTok's parent company, they have 45 days to sell TikTok to a U.S. business. They said that they will do it and that they're splitting the Chinese operation from the U.S. operation. Microsoft was in talks to buy TikTok. The president first did not support it, but apparently he does now, and that could likely take place very soon. So TikTok will likely be saved.
Plenty of news over in the US. Jackson, thank you. Closer to home now, cases continue to rise in the Greater Geelong area, with all of regional Victoria now put into Stage 3 restrictions. Lincoln Holmes has the details.
Geelong and its surrounding areas, including the Surf Coast, have now entered Stage 3 lockdown in a bid to help stop the spread of COVID-19.
It is with some regret, but given the significant community transmission and the growing case numbers and the fact that we need to stay ahead of this in regional Victoria, from midnight next Wednesday, regional Victoria will move to Stage 3 restrictions. That's stay at home except for the 4 reasons to leave.
Health officials say they want people to wear face masks. Even though it is mandatory, they are pleading for people to wear them, with a large number of people being fined for not wearing them right across the state.
The current rules have avoided thousands and thousands of cases each day, and then thousands of people in hospital and many more tragedies than we have seen.
Health officials have also said face masks and Stage 3/4 restrictions will help stop the spread of COVID-19, and numbers should begin to get better in the coming weeks. But if they don't, health officials haven't ruled out a Stage 4 lockdown in regional Victoria.
I can absolutely see cases decreasing, but in terms of a guarantee, government, public service can no more make a guarantee, because it's our collective responsibility to address this.
Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Over 130 people have been killed and thousands injured after a major explosion rocked Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Images of the blast seen around the world. Take a look. The Lebanese government has declared a 2-week state of emergency with investigations ongoing. Now, there are still dozens of people missing, with other countries, including Australia, now sending support to Lebanon. French President Emmanuel Macron has visited the scene there. We'll have more on the potential cause later in the bulletin. Let's check in with some other stories making news tonight. And Karl, the Prime Minister has confirmed he will not ban TikTok.
That's right, Leo, but it will be scrutinised at the very least. That's what we're hearing from Scott Morrison. But China has actually lashed out with all of this, with one state-run media outlet saying that our country's US diplomatic policy defence will backfire. Tensions have been really escalating, haven't they? Also making news, the suspected 17-year-old mastermind of last month's major Twitter hack has pleaded not guilty to allegations that he hijacked over a dozen high-profile accounts, including Barack Obama and Kanye West. Wasn't that a kerfuffle? Twitter has since been having several issues with its app and website since the major hacking. And meantime, Rupert Murdoch's son, James, he's quit News Corp, bored over concerns. Well, it's all about concerns that he had over certain parts of the media giant's editorial policy. Really interesting stuff to lose one of the Murdoch sons. Well, this includes concerns about reporting on issues like climate change during the bushfire crisis earlier this year. And News Corp, of course, owns major mastheads here in Australia, including the Herald Sun and the Daily Telegraph, as well as Sky News and Fox News over in the US. So, Leo, watch this space.
Karl, thank you, and we'll cross back to you later in the bulletin. And we're going to take a quick break now. Coming up next on 6 News, we'll recap our top story, plus more details come out surrounding the cause of the explosion that has destroyed Beirut's port. Also, Facebook removes a post from Donald Trump saying it made false claims about COVID-19. And the AFL infuriated about requests for renovations inside family hubs. Stay with us.
Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight, and David Robinson.
Ben, Robbo. News, reviews, entertainment news. It's the Ben, Robbo. Ben, Robbo Show. Ben, Robbo Show.
The Ben, Rob and Robbo Show, Monday to Thursday at 1 p.m, right here on Ticker TV.
Welcome back to 6 News, recapping our top story this Sunday, and the ADF is now doing door-to-door checks to make sure people are following the rules if they are supposed to be in self-isolation as Melbourne enters an official stage 4 restrictions. More deaths have also been recorded, including a man in his 30s. And the other big story we're following tonight, the explosion that has killed more than 130 people and injured thousands in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Local officials say the most likely cause is a near 3,000-ton stockpile of a highly explosive chemical at a fireworks factory. Now, the country's Prime Minister said it has been stored in the warehouse for more than 6 years. US President Trump, however, has said that generals told him it appeared to be a bomb and an attack. Now, investigations are ongoing. And staying with Donald Trump, he's had one of his Facebook posts removed after the company says it made false claims about COVID-19. Now, the post was a video of an interview the president did with the Fox News channel with claims in it that children are immune from the virus, according to a statement from a Facebook spokesperson. It's just another one of his posts that have been removed. Twitter has also been deleting Trump's tweets as well as fact-checking them. The AFL is reportedly infuriated about requests for renovations inside family hubs. Nine reporter Sam McClure says there have been regular requests for extra food orders and calls for carpenters to renovate apartments families are currently living in. Now, 14 of the 18 clubs are currently in hubs, most of them in Queensland, some of them in Perth. The league has not confirmed the claims. Quickly checking the weather now. Brisbane 20, Sydney 15, Canberra 13, Melbourne 16, Adelaide 17, Perth 16.
Darwin is heading for a high of 33 degrees. Townsville 26, Wollongong just 15 degrees, Ballarat just 14. Bendigo heading for a cool top of 16 degrees, and Hobart, well, you just want to stay in bed in Hobart, 11 degrees, chilly.
That is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date on all our social pages at 6 News AU. I'm Leonardo Puglisi.
And I'm Karl Stefanovic.
Good night.